So we know that your time is valuable, and we so appreciate you doing this for us.
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking about lectins. I mean, it seems like you really, there's a lot of interest in the subject.
Yeah, well, I just want to, do a bit of a discovery that we've been on for probably the last 5 years. We sort of started with nuts and seeds and things, and when we realised there were all sorts of toxins in those that needed to be soaked, so we'd soak them and soak them and soak them, and then we found out we're only taking out about a quarter to a third of the toxins, and then over the last couple of years, we just sort of come across these words, these phytates, the glutens, the lectins, the alkaloids, the nitrates, the nitrites.
In plants, they're all in plants.
And the oxalates. And we knew that there was something going on here with plants, but now in the last 6 months, there's all the stuff is coming out, how the plant has a natural defense system against.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I've been talking about this for many years, actually. If you go to my archives, we've been talking about it for at least 10 years in my presentations on my radio shows. The idea that plants don't want to be eaten. Nature doesn't want the plants eaten. Nature doesn't want the seeds eaten. Nature wants to propagate. It doesn't want its bounty to be eaten. It wants to grow. All living things want to grow. So plants have evolved a chemical warfare system to punish the intrepid predator who would dare eat the plant or eat the seed. Now you may remember, I don't know what they tell you in, are you in Australia or New Zealand? Where are you guys?
We're both. We're doing Australia and New Zealand this morning.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know what it's like down under, but here in the United States, mothers are always telling their children not to eat the watermelon seeds or not to eat the apple seeds, not to eat the seeds. Have you heard that?
Well, even apricot has got cyanide and arsenic.
Well, there you go. That's exactly where I'm going with this. Is seeds contain high amounts of these lectins. In fact, you've heard of Laetrile. Have you heard of Laetrile?
Mm.
Okay, so Laetrile is used to treat cancer.
Yeah,
it's found in almonds and nuts.
Ben, would you mind if I just butt in occasionally on some of these points? Because
yeah, please do.
Some of these literal statements, people get up in arms. Well, why shouldn't I eat fruit? But a ripened fruit, apparently the seed is so hardened that just goes through us, and then we poop it out down the track.
You don't want to chew. That's right.
And that's what the plant wants.
That's right. You don't want to chew. Well, no, that's different. The plant wants you to spread the seed intact.
Yeah.
It doesn't want you to digest the seed.
Yeah.
If you digest the seed, that doesn't do the plant any good. It's not a seed anymore. It's not viable anymore. So nature doesn't want you eating its seeds. It doesn't want you digesting its seeds. So seeds are loaded with these lectins, these chemical warfare compounds. Now, you may know this, you probably do know this. There's a kind of seed that we all eat. In fact, we eat so much of the seed that empires are sustained by these seeds as a form of wealth, as a resource. The Egyptian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Sumerian Empire, the Chinese Empire, the British Empire, the United States Empire grew and was funded by the resources that were provided by these seeds. And what's the collective name for these seeds that I'm talking about?
Grains?
Exactly, grains. And ever since we learned how to chop grains up and get at the insides of them, which occurred maybe 20,000 years ago, the rocks, it would crush grains up, the world changed. Before we figured out that we could crush grains up and have access to the carbohydrates and calories inside them, we were stuck hunting and gathering, foraging. And as soon as I don't know who it was, but some guy figured out they could take a rock and crush those things up, all of a sudden people didn't need to hunt and gather. They could stay local. But this was 10, 15,000 years ago. The point I'm making is we've all learned to subsist on these seeds. But nature has loaded with these seeds with these defensive compounds that punish the people or the beings that eat those seeds. Those compounds that are in the seeds are collectively referred to as lectins. Lectins are all over the place. They're not just in seeds. They're in grains. Lectins are found throughout nature. In fact, meat that eat the plants can make lectins, and you can have lectins in chicken. You can have lectins in pork. You can have lectins in beef. So you may think, I'm not going to eat any plants. I'm just going to go all meat. You get lectins there too. So lectins are ubiquitous. It doesn't do any, and by the way, those things you talked about like oxalates and phytates, and these other compounds. They're also plant defensive compounds, and they also wreak havoc on the bodies of animals that eat these substances. Gluten is the classic example of a plant defensive compound. Lectins. You know, these plants are so smart. Check this out. They will actually make defensive compounds that will not affect the animal that eats the lectin or the plant defensive compound, but will affect the next generation. In other words, the rabbit will eat the carrot, but the carrot contains lectins that will not affect the rabbit that ate it, but will keep the rabbit from making more rabbits. It will act like birth control. Plants actually make birth control pills. Have you heard of phytoestrogens?
Yep, definitely.
Phytoestrogens are plant birth control for animals. You ask, why would a plant make estrogen? Estrogen's for animals. What's the purpose of that, right? The purpose of that is to punish the animal or to prevent the animal that eats the phytoestrogen from reproducing. How smart is that?
It's clever.
They're like generations ahead. They're preparing for the next generation. That's how unbelievably smart plants are. The bottom line here is that I hear people talk all the time, well, I can't have a digestive problem because I just eat organic, or I just eat vegetables, or I only eat raw, or I'm a vegan. I don't eat anything bad. I'm a vegan. And people have these ideas about what's healthy and what's not healthy based on what they think is healthy and not healthy, and they're subjecting themselves to all kinds of compounds that they wouldn't be if they were eating meat.
So we're literally cannibalizing a highly intelligent living
in essence
organism that's out to get us.
You know what, sir? I tell me your name. I don't know your. I'm sorry. I don't know Ken. You know what, Ken? It's a jungle out there. Everything is eating everything else. And so that's how nature works. Everything eats everything else. And so there's defensive compounds that are made to adapt for that. There's chemical warfare. So you don't want to get caught up in the specific lectins or the specific type of lectin or the specific food that has the lectin in it. What you want to do is you want to go by your symptoms. You want to become attuned to your body. You want to become attuned to the messages, the signals that the body is sending you. So skin is a sort of language. Acne, psoriasis, eczema. These are all ways your skin is talking to you. Belly aches, constipation. These are all ways your belly is talking to you. Brain fog. That's another sign that your body's talking to you. Clotted blood, hypertension, another sign that your body's talking to you. So when you eat a food, if you have any kind of health challenge and you eat a food, pay attention to what happens after you eat that food. And I don't like, I know we Jeff, we have these 10 bad foods, 10 good foods, 10 bad foods, whatever. I don't even like going by that. Just go by how your body responds to certain foods. Stay away from foods that are highly processed, of course, deep fried. Stay away from foods that have that are modified somehow through cooking or through processing or through industrial kinds of chemicals and all the things we do to our food. Stay away from those. Eat as close to natural and unprocessed as possible. And when you're eating unprocessed, you're still not out of the woods because, like we say, plants make these defensive compounds. So see how you feel after you eat a food. It doesn't matter if it's asparagus. It doesn't matter if it's lettuce. It doesn't matter if it's tomatoes. All these compounds, all of these kinds of foods have lectins and plant defensive molecules that can cause problems. Now, grains are going to be the biggest one. And when it comes to grains, everybody knows about gluten, but there's gluten-like compounds that aren't gluten in corn and in rice and in potatoes and in sorghum, and all the various grains have their own plant defensive compounds. So you may say, well, I'm gluten-free. I just drink gluten-free beer and eat gluten-free brownies and eat gluten-free pizza. Doesn't matter, because just because it doesn't have gluten doesn't mean it doesn't have something that's like gluten. It doesn't have another
glutamize.
What's that?
Glutamize is something they put in
glutaminase. Glutaminase is a little bit different. Glutaminase is an enzyme that is used to break up gluten. And a lot of people can have issues when the gluten is broken up by the glutaminase. So that's a whole nother problem. That's not a gluten, though. That's an enzyme that breaks up gluten. In fact, Dr. Gundry, you know that book, The Plant Paradox?
We've been studying that, yeah.
Okay, so he talks about that. He talks about yeast as being a natural way to break up gluten. Did you get to that part? Did you read that part?
Haven't yet, no.
Yeah. He talks about yeast in bread, like the old bread that was made with yeast.
Oh, sourdoughs, yeah, the sourdough.
Sourdoughs, right. All those kinds of things help break up gluten. But the best way to break up lectins is to sprout and add water and let things soak.
Yep.
Soaking deactivates these things. Soaking deactivates phytates and deactivates lectins. So sprouts are very interesting because, you know, grains are problematic, definitely problematic. But a grain, and a seed for that matter, as soon as it contacts water and a little bit of sunlight, it goes from being a very problematic food to one of nature's best foods.
Yep.
All that life force that is trapped in the seed is released when the seed sprouts. Have you ever seen seeds? Have you ever seen how seed sprouts? Like you put a little water and little sprouts come out. That sprout is the most concentrated, among the most concentrated life force foods you could ever eat. And seeds go from a problematic food to a wonderful food, one of the best foods you could ever eat as soon as they're sprouted. So making sprouts out of seeds or making sprouts out of nuts, soaking your nuts, soaking your seeds, soaking your grains. These are all wonderful strategies to protect yourself from these kinds of lectins. Same with fermentation. And also bacteria in the gut can help us process these things, help process lectins, because while we can't really digest lectins or process them, bacteria in the gut can. So if you have a lectin issue or a food issue that associated with lectins, make sure you're using probiotics or eat fermented foods. Eat foods that have bacteria in them. The bacteria in the cabbage will break up the lectins that are in the cabbage, and the sauerkraut is much easier for the body to handle than the cabbage. Some people can't handle cabbage,
and
but they can
legumes, chickpeas, lentils. Apparently by pressure cooking them, it destroys the lectins.
Absolutely. Legumes are a very, very problematic food, very problematic. But when they're fermented or they're broken down by bacteria or sprouted, they become wonderful foods. They become incredible foods. Problem is, it's such a pain in the butt for people to do all that stuff. You know, most people don't bother with it. So, you know, that's how
it's a 20-minute process, isn't it? Chuck them in the pressure cooker and they're done.
Doesn't take much, does it?
No.
You know, most people don't want to be bothered with it.
So Ben, about a year ago, after looking at all this for 2 or 3 years, Michelle was just about ready to pull her hair out. Like, okay, well, what do we have? What do we eat? So we come across Stephen Gundry's work, and we got the Plant Paradox recipe book, and she's been studying it ever since. And we're amazed that we really don't have to change much at all. We're vegetarian, and it's now the way that we process everything. We can pretty well do most things still. And
what did you notice? What did you notice about your health?
One of the things I did notice was like a clarity in my brain. Like things just started to clear, and felt like my energy was just flowing better. Yeah.
One of the things these lectins do, and by the way, brain fog is really a common side effect of gluten. You can have gluten intolerance to the brain. You know, dementia can be related to the brain because a lot of these compounds cross the blood-brain barrier.
Well, so I read Parkinson's.
Parkinson's, cognitive issues, dementia. All of these can be related to. Gluten. There's a book called Grain Brain. I don't know if you heard of this book, Grain Brain.
Absolutely.
It talks all about this. So one of the big problems with lectins is they activate the immune system. See, here's the thing with lectins. It's kind of interesting. The reason why lectins are so reactive is because the bloodstream has cells that are constantly looking for invaders that have invaded into the bloodstream. Now, the invaders that the immune system, these cells in the blood, are looking for are invaders that look like living life forms. The blood is the sacred space. Nothing alive is ever supposed to get into the blood that's not you. Blood is the sacred space. Lectins are proteins. They're peptides, technically. And they look like life forms to the immune system. And so when the immune system sees a lectin, it thinks it's been invaded. When the immune system sees a lectin in the blood, it thinks the blood has been invaded by an alien life form. It doesn't know that it's just a little fragment, like a little peptide fragment. It thinks it could be an insect, it could be bacteria, it could be anything. It's a life form. Peptides, these little pieces of protein, duplicate chemicals that are in animals, in living things. So it looks like an invader has gotten into the blood, and that activates the entire immune system. It's like, we used to have a show here in the United States. I don't know if you had a show. I had this show in Australia or New Zealand. It was called Lost in Space. It was a kid's show. Did you ever see the show?
Yeah.
Oh, you remember? Do you remember the robot?
Yeah.
You remember, danger, 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 Will Robinson,
Yeah.
danger. You remember that? Right? Okay. That's your immune system when a lectin gets in it. When lectin gets into the blood.
So being the whole GI tract, the whole digestive tract from our mouth down to the other end is actually even though it's inside our body, it's actually exterior. That whole digestive tract is exterior.
The Greeks used,
on the inside, it's on the outside of our body.
absolutely. The Greeks used to think it was a separate animal that lived inside your body. That little tube that runs from your mouth to the other end is completely divorced from the rest of the body.
So the
and
challenge,
for good reason.
Yeah.
For good reason. Because nothing is supposed to get into the blood until it's been vetted. This is why you don't want to do vaccines, or you don't want to inject things through your skin, drugs through your skin, because things get into the blood, they haven't been vetted.
So Ben, that cell wall, apparently, that GI tract wall is apparently one cell thick. It's very, very thin.
Well, it's thicker than one cell. The surface is one cell thick, but it's got a lot of connective tissue inside. But here's the thing. When you eat a food, you put it in your mouth, it gets chewed, hopefully, goes into your gullet, goes down into your stomach, it gets churned around in your stomach, and then it gets broken down, and then it goes into the intestine. It gets completely broken down into its component parts. So you eat a hamburger, by the time it hits your intestine, it's now it should be, if you're healthy, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals. All of these are the little tiny components that make up the food. In fact, the vast majority of the food is pooped out. Maybe 1 or 2% or 3% of the food is kept inside your digestive system. The vast majority of the food we eat is eliminated. So 1, 2, 3 small percentages of the food go into the intestine, and at that point something very interesting happens. So here's your intestinal tube, right? On the other side of the intestinal tube is your body, represented by the blood. Now, when food goes down the pipe, it goes down, and now it's amino acids and it's vitamins and it's all of the small microscopic nutrients, amino acids, etc. Something very cool happens. The cells of the wall, imagine the walls like this, like the inside of a garden hose, right? The cells of the inside of that garden hose see the vitamin, the B vitamin or the amino acid or whatever it is, and they grab it and they flip it over and they put it into the bloodstream. And they keep doing this. Isn't this pretty cool? This is how nutrients get into the blood from the intestine. They get grabbed, flipped over, and they go into the bloodstream. And this is a very, very intelligent process.
So at that point, they've gone from the outside of your body
to the inside, to the end. This is where the outside meets the inside, is in this flipping over.
So it's not when it comes into your mouth that it meets.
No, absolutely not. It's the things. That's right. Otherwise, you'd be dead because you eat all these poisons. The body has a way of filtering all that out. Only the good stuff gets in the blood. However, over the course of time, and by time I mean the years and the decades of abuse to the body, of eating the wrong foods, of being malnourished, of having the wrong bacteria in the gut, you get these little holes that start to form in the garden hose. And now things can leak into the blood instead of getting vetted and approved of and flipped over in a controlled fashion. They can do an end run. They can sneak into the blood away from the flipping over cells, and they can sneak in. That's called leaky gut syndrome.
So Ben, also it can get into through the vascular wall and create as much damage in the vascular system.
Hang on. We'll get there. That's true. We'll get there. So now you've got these things that are leaking in through the intestinal wall, through the leaky guts, and now you've got invaders in the blood. These invaders oftentimes are peptides or lectins. Lectins shouldn't be able to get through that gut wall. However, they can interfere with the flipping over mechanism. They can cause tremendous damage. In fact, there's a disease you can get that's an official disease, but a lot of people have it without even knowing it. It's called celiac disease. You've heard of that. Yep. Celiac disease is when the intestinal wall gets really damaged. And this is a precursor to this leaky gut phenomenon. Now, you don't have to have diagnosed full-blown celiac disease to have this problem. It happens to anybody. If it happens really bad, the cells get really damaged and they cause an immune reaction and inflammation. That's full-blown celiac disease, but most people have a certain degree of it, especially by the time you're 40 or 50, based on how we eat and how we take care of ourselves. So long story short, for the vast majority of us, especially if you're sick, but even if you're not symptomatic, we've got this condition where these peptides, these lectins, are sneaking in through the intestinal wall and they end up in the bloodstream. Once they're in the bloodstream, they elicit a very powerful defensive response from the body because the blood is the sacred space. Nothing is ever supposed to get into the blood that's not purified and vetted. These lectins, these little pieces of protein that sneak into the blood, set off an immune response. Now, when the immune response is activated in the blood, several things happen. One thing that happens is the blood becomes sludgy and sticky and more prone to clot. What this does is it reduces the amount of nutrients that will circulate and the amount of nutrients that will get into the different cells. It slows up the release of toxins, and it creates a overall sense of malnourishment situation and toxicity situation in the body. That's number one. It clots the blood. And blood clotting is a major problem. In the United States, probably in Australia and New Zealand as well, the best-selling drugs, in the top 5 best-selling drugs, you'll always find 1 or 2 blood thinners. Because blood thinning is like an epidemic. Largely because stuff is getting into the blood inappropriately through this leaky gut. The second thing that happens when you have these invaders in the blood and you have this defensive response is the body will send cells to protect the blood, to surround the invader, like a blob, like a wall around the invader. And now you have this blob of immune cells and invader floating around through the blood. Doctors call this blob of immune cells plus invader a CIC, which stands for circulating immune complex. Circulating immune complex is a blob of stuff that has snuck into the blood that arises from peptides or lectins or invaders in the blood that have been protected by the body by surrounding them. If it happens once or twice, that's not a big deal. But if it happens over and over and over again, eventually your blood is filled with these circulating immune complexes. Now, the body has a mechanism for cleaning itself out, cleaning the blood out from these circulating immune complexes. It's kind of like when I was a kid and my mom would tell me to clean my room, I, being a smart little kid, would shove everything under the bed. And then I say, Mom, come on in. My room is clean. And sure enough, it was clean. She didn't look under the bed because if she did, she'd be horrified because all my stuff was under the bed, right? Well, the body does much the same thing. When all these circulating immune complexes are in the blood, it will try to get rid of them by shoving them into the various tissues in the body. It'll shove them in the soft tissues in the kidneys and in the liver and in the thyroid and in the spleen. And now you have these organs throughout the body that are complexed with these immune cells, and they become these organs, the cells of the organs become distorted, and they become a site of attack by the immune system. The immune system sees the thyroid or sees the kidney or sees the skin as being invaded. It doesn't recognize the skin anymore or the other organs, whatever organ it is, because it has these circulating immune complexes. It will now mount an attack on these various tissues. We call that an autoimmune disease. And you now have, if you understand what I just said over the last 10, 15 minutes, you now have the cause of all autoimmune diseases and the cure for all autoimmune diseases. And I don't know, and I'm talking multiple sclerosis and myasthenia gravis and lupus, scleroderma and type 1 diabetes. I'm talking all of them. This is the mechanism for all autoimmune diseases, which is why Everybody who has an autoimmune disease, anybody on this call have an autoimmune disease or know anybody who has an autoimmune disease? Everybody who has an autoimmune disease will notice that their autoimmune disease symptoms subside when they stop eating. You don't need to be tested for leaky gut syndrome if you have an autoimmune disease. You have it. You don't need to be tested for CICs if you have an autoimmune disease. You have them. You don't need to be tested for anything if you have an autoimmune disease. You can rest assured you've got a leaky gut problem and start patching up the gut. And to prove it to yourself, all you got to do is stop eating for a day and you'll notice that your symptoms subside. Or alternatively, eat a whole bunch of your favorite food and watch your symptoms go up. That's a little bit easier to do, but it's obviously not good for you to do it. But if you want to experiment and see what happens, watch your scleroderma symptoms flare up. Watch your Sjogren's symptoms flare up, your MS symptoms, whatever, when you eat bread or when you eat lectin-rich beans or you eat any kind of food that contains these invaders. Any kind of food can do it. You just got to see what it is. So autoimmune disease is another major effect of this leaky gut syndrome lectin response. So a couple things. If you're concerned about lectins, there's a lot you could do. One interesting thing you can do, this is really fascinating. See, the way lectins work is they interfere with how cells do their business. So we have to backtrack a little bit and say what a cell is. Obviously, you've heard the term cell, but really what a cell is quite amazing. You have this little tiny entity. It's about 1/100th the size of a head of a pin. And this little tiny entity that's 1/100th the size of the head of a pin has got millions of working parts inside of it that are compartmentalized into different parts of this little tiny entity, and they're constantly shape-shifting. These working parts are constantly being broken down and rearranged and broken down and rearranged. There's a whole dynamic, kinetic, frantic nature to the chemistry that's happening inside a cell. Now, as unbelievable as a cell is on the inside, on the outside, it's just as amazing. On the outside of a cell, you have a fatty membrane. And I say it, fatty membrane, but really what it is just a little film of oil, basically. But that film of oil functions as the intelligence of the cell. That's the brain of the cell, is this little film of oil on top of the cell. And this brain is constantly reading the environment for whether there's food or whether there's oxygen or whether there's glucose or if the environment is healthy or not healthy, and it's sending messages about the environment to the inside. So the brain is like the information processor of a cell. It's like our brain. It reads the outside world and sends messages to the inside. That's what our brain does, is it reads the outside world and sends messages to the inside. This little film of oil on top of the cell does the same thing. But even better, or even more astounding, on top of the film of oil, which is on top of this little entity that's 1/100th the size of a head of a pin, on top of that film of oil, you have a forest of trees that are made up of sugars, long chains of sugars. And if you looked at it microscopically, or if you could zoom in and become a little entity on top of that film of oil, you would think you were in a jungle. It had all of these stalks of sugars. They're made up of sugars. They surround the cells. And these stalks of sugar are very sticky, like all sugars are sticky, and they act to help cells communicate with each other. They're almost like ID badges for cells. Like when you go to a party or a networking event, it says, hello, my name is Jim. Hello, my name is Ken. Hello, my name is Michelle, that kind of thing. These long chains of sugar say, hello, my name is Ben's liver cell. Hello, my name is Ben's bone cell. Hello, my name is Ken's cardiac cell. Hello, my name is Michelle's nerve cell. Whatever. They tell the cells of the immune system that we're friendly. I'm a member of the tribe. I'm part of the gang. It's an ID badge. What a lectin does, it has a special ability to stick to a sugar forest on top of the membrane to disturb the ID badge. So now that cell looks foreign. Now that cell is unrecognizable. It destroys the ID badge. Does that make sense? You guys follow me on that? It's a very fascinating mechanism, and if you understand it, you'll understand how you can use a special kind of tool to get rid of lectins. If you could figure out a way to give the body sugars that look like the kind of sugars that are on top of cells that ordinarily a lectin would attack. You could actually wash away or slime away lectins. Sort of like in the Air Force, they have these heat-seeking missiles, right? And so if you're flying a plane, you'll shoot an enemy combatant will shoot a heat-seeking missile at you, right? And that will explode the plane if it hits the plane. But the pilot of the plane that's about to be attacked can do something very interesting. He can drop a flare out of his plane, and now the heat-seeking missile will go like this, and it will go for the flare. You guys know what I'm talking about? Does that make sense? That's a way that planes have to protect themselves from heat-seeking missiles in warfare. They'll drop a drone or a flare, and the flare is heat-seeking, is hot, and the heat-seeking missile will be distracted and will go for the flare. Well, if that heat-seeking missile is a lectin, and the plane is your body or one of the cells of your body, if you could figure out a way to drop a flare, that lectin will now go for the flare and leave your cells alone. Now, the body will utilize this technique, but we can utilize it as well. You see, there are certain sugars that look like the sugars on top of a cell, the forest. By the way, the technical name for this forest is the glycocalyx, which means sugar mask in Latin. So the body will do this, but we can do this also, and I'll tell you how you do it in a second. The body creates compounds, wonderful compounds that we don't appreciate at all, by the way, that look like the glycocalyx, but act in reality like a flare to distract the lectin. Do you know what we call that wonderful compound that's made by the body that acts like a flare to distract the lectin? Who knows? We call it, should I tell you?
Yeah.
You don't sound like you're really interested over there.
Yeah.
We're just all ears.
I've got everyone muted. That's why you're not hearing it.
Oh, okay. All right. We call it snot.
Oh.
That's what snot is. Mucus. That's what mucus is. The body makes mucus because it looks like the glycocalyx. And when you eat a lectin, the body will slime the lectin away. It'll stick to the lectin and it'll rinse it out of your body. That's why the body makes mucus. It protects it from lectins. That's why when you eat lectins, you'll get snotty. You'll get congested.
The mucus can create its own problems, Ben, can't it?
Of course, that's right. If it happens once in a while, that's a good thing. But when it happens chronically, yes, absolutely. Mucus creates its own problem. The problem isn't the mucus. The problem is the chronic secretion of the mucus. The problem isn't the inflammation. It's the chronic inflammation. The problem isn't the immune system. It's the chronic activation of the immune system. So we keep doing this over and over again. Now, if you could figure out a way to give yourself mucus, you could support your body's protective response to lectins. So how can we give ourselves mucus? Well, guess what? You can buy longevity mucus, longevity snot, longevity cell snot. You guys know that? It's snot in a bottle. You didn't know that?
What is it?
What product?
It's called snot in a bottle. No, it's not. I call it snot in a bottle.
Talk about that one.
You want to talk about snot in a bottle? Well, you know what it is, probably. I don't know, in Australia or New Zealand, if you have this product, I assume you do. What is the snotty product that longevity sells?
I can't think.
Fucoid Z. Radical. And Fucoid Z are snotty. The snot is made, you ever seen algae? You guys live by the ocean, right? Are you by the ocean?
Yeah.
So you know algae is snotty, right? Have you ever seen algae?
Yeah.
It has a snotty quality.
Yep.
Right? You know what I'm talking about? It has a slimy quality.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That slimy quality is mucus. It's the algae's version of mucus. Remember, all animals are all living things are making lectins. So in response, all living things make mucus. Everything that's alive makes mucus. Yep. Algae are very rich in mucus. And this mucus is very supportive for the body's immune system because it acts like a flare to pull lectins out. It supports the body's immune system. Fucoid Z is made with brown algae.
Okay, so how much would we need each day?
At least a cap. I like the capsules, so at least a couple capsules a day, 6 a day, 9 a day. And it doesn't just help support you against lectins from plants. It helps support you from lectins on bacteria. Bacteria make lectins too, by the way. Oh. Bacteria use lectins to invade. In fact, there's a bacteria called E. coli, you probably heard of that, that makes lectins that will stick to your intestine, your bladder, and cause painful infections called UTIs, urinary tract infections. And using mucus, using the Fuchs Z, or anything that's sugary, like mannose. Have you heard of mannose? Mannose is a remedy for cranberry juice. You've heard of cranberry juice, right? For UTIs. Cranberry juice contains these mucus-like compounds to slime away the E. coli from your bacteria. That's how they work. So any kind of slime, whether it's seaweed, eating seaweed, your Fuchs Z, using mannose supplements, all of these things can act to help the body get rid of lectins. There's also a supplement that Youngevity sells. It's not mucus, but it's a component in mucus. It's one of the active ingredients in mucus. And this component of mucus, when you take it, will do the same thing that the mucus will do. Not as effectively as the mucus, but it will do kind of the same thing. It's called glucosamine. Have you heard of glucosamine?
Yes.
Okay, obviously. So glucosamine acts the same way. Glucosamine is anti-lectin. It helps slime away lectin. So make sure you're using your glucogel caps. When we talk about the glucogel caps, we talk about the glucogel caps for arthritis, but the glucogel caps are great for protecting you from lectins. Glucosamine in general will protect you from lectins. In fact, there's a very special kind of glucosamine that's found in aloe vera. And by the way, aloe vera is a wonderful way to slime away lectins, one of the best. Aloe vera contains something in it called N-acetylglucosamine, NAG, or NAG. Sometimes
so Ben, would glucogel caps help support healing of leaky gut?
Absolutely, 100%. Everybody with leaky gut should be using glucosamine, the glucogel. Everybody. Not just the glucosamine in there, but the gelatin and the gel caps. That also helps protect. Glucogel caps, the gelatin is just as important as the glucosamine. Gelatin has a wonderful protective effect for for leaky gut, or healing effect for leaky gut. When we talk about leaky gut, we got to we don't have to, but it's helpful to take the gut, or the tube, the garden hose. You guys get that it's a garden hose, right?
Yeah.
So that garden hose is made up of a couple layers. Ken said it's one layer thick. Well, the surface, or one cell thick, the surface is very thin. But underneath the surface, you have a very strong, robust, and vigorous type of tissue called connective tissue. And it is this connective tissue that deteriorates and breaks down and forms holes when we have leaky gut syndrome. So leaky gut is a connective tissue problem. But connective tissue makes up a large proportion of the body. Probably 20 to 30% of the body is made up of connective tissue. Connective tissue holds everything in place. So as we get older, like everything in the body, we start to break down. The most significant part of the area that breaks down in the body as we age is the connective tissue.
So Ben, the feli is actually the fine little feli fingers. They're actually on the external part of our body.
They're in the external part of the body. They're in the garden hose.
So they're out in the open, out in the wilderness.
They're out in the wilderness. That's where those cells that flip over are part of the villi. They're part of those finger-like extensions. But that's what I was talking about, is this whole idea of the connective tissue in the body. So wrinkles are leaky gut of the skin.
Wow.
Aneurysms and holes in weakness in the artery is leaky gut of the artery. Hernias are leaky gut of the fascia. Prolapses are leaky gut of the connective tissue. Mitral valve prolapses, bladder prolapses. The inside of our body is held in place with connective tissue. Our spleen and our lungs and our heart and our stomach and our pancreas are all embedded in a mass of connective tissue. Like, you ever see a fruit mold with pineapples and cantaloupe, and you know what I'm talking about? You got this, they call it Jello mold here. You ever seen a Jello mold? I don't know if you have over there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Is it yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So fruit is held in a Jello mold, the way our stomach and our heart and our pancreas and our internal organs are held in connective tissue. The connective tissue is the matrix within which all the organs of the body sit in. And as we age and that connective tissue deteriorates, our pineapples drop. That's called a prolapsed uterus or a prolapsed bladder or a hernia or a ruptured disc, or herniated disc. These are all signs that our organs are starting to break through the connective tissue. So the glucogel caps will not only help strengthen the connective tissue in the gut, they'll help strengthen the connective tissue in the skin to prevent wrinkles. Glucogel caps prevent wrinkles. The bone is connective tissue, so the glucogel caps will strengthen your bones to prevent osteoporosis. The internal matrix is held together in connective tissue. The glucogel caps will prevent prolapses and prevent hernias and prevent ruptures. By the way, when the coronary arteries, the connective tissue in the coronary arteries break down, little fissures, little cuts, little nicks will start to form in the coronary arteries. And the body has a wonderful way of patching up those coronary arteries, of patching up the little nicks and the cuts that are caused by connective tissue deterioration. Do you know what the body uses as a Band-Aid to patch up what is it?
Cholesterol.
You hit it, the nail on the head. That's what cholesterol is. And your boneheaded doctor will say, oh, you've got too much cholesterol. We got to give you a drug to stop you from making cholesterol, when the cholesterol is there in your arteries to protect them, to keep them stronger. Now, it's not a good thing to have cholesterol in your arteries, maybe a little bit here and there, but to have a lot of it's not a good thing, because the cholesterol forms plaques with calcium. It can break off. It can cause problems. So what you want to do is, instead of a statin drug, is you want to strengthen the arteries, strengthen the connective tissue. So your glucogel caps are not just for arthritis. They're not just for the connective tissue in your joints. They're for the connective tissue in your skin, the connective tissue in your bones, the connective tissue in the internal part of your body, the connective tissue that holds your heart together, the connective tissue that keeps your arteries healthy. The glucogel caps help everything. And all of the signs of aging that we find so distressing, from the stooped over appearance to the thinning skin and the wrinkles to the weakness of the bones and the muscles to the cholesterol deposits and the weakening of the heart, are all connective tissue issues that you can prevent by using your glucogel caps. And bonus, as if that's not enough, the glucogel caps act like a little flare to prevent you from lectins. They act to build up all the different parts of your body. Bonus, the glucogel caps help thin your blood to make nutrients more available and oxygen more available, and to improve your blood's ability to detox.
Yeah. So a maintenance dose, 4 a day, a maintenance dose?
I take 6 a day, but yeah, 4 a day, whatever. You can take 9 a day. Yep. You can take as many as you want. Especially if you have an autoimmune disease or connective tissue deterioration of any kind, aside from joints. I mean, just incredible supplement.
So Ben, what would be a protocol if somebody's got leaky gut syndrome? What would
Number one, do a food diary and eliminate problem foods. Most important thing you could do. As long as you have wounds in your intestine and you keep eating, your intestine will never have a chance to heal. It's like having a scab that you keep picking, right? If you keep picking your scab, it's never going to heal. If you have leaky gut syndrome, you're constantly eating the gluten or whatever it is you're eating, and you constantly have problems, your intestine's not going to have a chance to heal. So lay off of foods for a couple days totally fast, and then identify problem foods and don't eat them anymore. That's the first and most important thing. The next thing is probiotics, the nightly essence. Get on the nightly essence. Take 9 a day. The bacteria play a major role in the health of the intestine, major role in the health of the villi and the intestinal cells. So make sure you're on probiotics, and also use fermented foods, especially fermented veggies. Make sure you're getting enough fiber to keep everything moving. You don't want food putrefying in the intestine. You don't want to hear the word putrefy and intestine in the same sentence. You want putrefaction eliminated. Putrefaction means rotting. Rotting food in the intestine, because you're not having regular bowel movements, because you don't have enough fiber, will exacerbate or even cause leaky gut syndrome.
So meat apparently has no fiber.
Meat has no fiber.
Doesn't move through the intestinal system very well.
No, meat is best done carefully. Meat, we're omnivores. Human beings are supposed to eat meat. And whether if you have a philosophical or religious reason for being a vegetarian, that's great. But you should understand that from an evolutionary perspective, human beings are omnivores. That means we eat everything. Our intestinal tract is designed to eat meat, not the way we eat meat today, not McDonald's. We're supposed to eat antelope, grass-fed wild animals. That's how we're supposed to eat. And, roasted fresh and quickly and not overcooked. But that's not how we eat meat. But from a theoretical perspective, from a biological perspective, we're meat eaters. Make no mistake about it. We're supposed to eat meat. But you got to be careful with meat. You got to be respectful of meat. Like you said, it has no fiber. So when you're eating meat, make sure you're eating veggies with your meat. And make sure you're eating small amounts of meat, not a lot of meat. It's very nutritionally dense. Make sure you got enough stomach acid. Make sure you're using things like apple cider vinegar or stomach bitters before your meals to help stimulate the secretion of stomach acid. Make sure you're getting enough digestive enzymes. Or you have digestive enzymes. There's a lot of strategies that you can use. But meat is a problem, definitely problematic food, but that's not to say you want to avoid it. Seafood should be ideal, but it's not because of how the oceans are. We live in we've crapped up our world. Human beings are the only animals that crap in their water and then drink it. And so that's the world we live in. What are you going to do? But yeah, meat, it has a lot of nutritional value, but you just got to be very strategic about it and very careful about it. Like with everything. In general, the less you eat, the better off you are. Next time you're really hungry, really, really, really hungry, like you haven't eaten all day, you're famished, or I hate this word, but people say, I'm starving. No, you're not starving, but people say that, I'm starving, right? Next time you're starving, eat a meal or prepare a meal, sit down, look at it, and pay attention to it, and then eat it, and notice that after 2 bites, you're not hungry anymore. But we still eat the whole meal. But after 2 bites, we're satisfied. Because the body only needs 2 bites of food if it's a quality food. Doesn't need more than 2 bites, 3 bites, something like that. Imagine how your life would change if you only had 2 or 3 bites 3 times a day. That's all you really need, 9 bites of food a day. We eat 9 pounds of food a day, not 9 bites of food a day. So eating less food is another major strategy for leaky gut syndrome. In addition to digestive enzymes, apple cider vinegar, building the connective tissue, using probiotics. There's an amino acid called glutamine, Glutamine, which is absolutely spectacular for feeding and for sustaining the health of the intestinal cells. And there's also something called short-chain fatty acids. Have you heard that term? Short-chain fatty acids. One in particular is derived from butter. That is very, very helpful for the health of the intestine, for the health of the entire digestive tract. So it's not necessarily specific, it's more for the large intestine than the small intestine, but it's still helpful. It'll still support digestive health. Bile, B-I-L-E, is also a very important substance that the body makes that protects the health of the intestine. So making sure you're producing enough bile. If you had a gallbladder removed, you got big problems. If you have liver issues, you got big problems, because both of these will compromise the ability of the intestine to get bile. And that can have a negative effect on leaky gut syndrome. If you're not producing enough stomach acid, you won't secrete enough bile. So making sure you're secreting enough stomach acid can help, using apple cider vinegar or HCl drops or something called gentian, G-E-N-T-I-A-N. All of those can help you secrete stomach acid. Using pancreatic enzymes can be helpful for leaky gut. You'll get some pancreatic enzymes in the Ultimate Enzymes, but you can take extra pancreatic enzymes as well. So lots and lots of strategies, but the most important is to eliminate problem foods, and that's where the lectins come in.
Okay, great.
So, Ben, we've literally scared the living daylights out of everybody today. Like, we've been scared for the last couple of years until we come across, what you're saying is so vital. We found the Plant Paradox recipe book, 100 recipes, have just clarified everything for us. And
okay, I have to take
what we eat now, but how we eat it and how we prepare it, and the timings of things like naturally ripened fruits.
Okay, what's the most delicious thing you can prepare? One thing, the most delicious thing that you can prepare.
Like, say for example, they're our legumes, which we've loved, but they haven't loved us. Well, we pressure cook them now. So
okay, good.
Not an ideal food, but they don't have any lectins in them. Good, like mashed potatoes that we loved. Well, we mashed cauliflower crucifix now with lots.
Okay, good. All right, good deal. I'm gonna have to get that book then.
Yeah, it's like, the fruit that we buy from the supermarket that's not naturally ripened is still full of lectins. Yet the beautiful all animals that eat fruits see in color. All animals that don't eat fruit see in grey. So because we determine when the fruit is ripe, and the tree wants that, it wants to eat it because the seed is hardened, the fruit is ripe, and we're the carrier.
That's very good.
Away from the tree. So all the strategies in that book is all the strategies on how to get around this whole thing.
Good for you. That's awesome.
All right. Well,
thank you so much. Any other questions?
Oh, yeah. We also read that making a broth of shellfish.
Oh, yes. The shells. That's right. The shells, not the shrimp shells, contain glucosamine. Yes, they contain wonderful anti-lectin material. So, save your shrimp shells.
Yeah, so when we have our ocean prawns now, we make a broth of all the heads and the shells and everything, and then we add all our other vegetables, things to that.
Oh, you're making my mouth water. That sounds so yummy.
So what questions have we got? Anybody got questions? So it was Dr. Stephen Gundry's recipe book with 100 recipes is the answer to get around this whole issue.
I am going to, I read The Plant Paradox a while ago, but I never got the cookbook. So
you can download it. It was $4 US in Kindle.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh,
thank you.
We got one question.
Oh, we do.
My husband and I both have autoimmune diseases.
Okay.
I had lupus disease 26 years ago and have recently realised through researching for my husband, who has cardiac sarcoid. He's nearly died 3 times over the last 3 years. So I've researched for him and discovered that I still had problems myself through the leaky gut. And I have a rash on my face that's been there for 26 years and I'm still struggling to get rid of it. Yeah.
You get rid of it right away.
Gone. I haven't eaten gluten for 8 months.
It's not just gluten. It's not just gluten.
No,
there's something you're eating. I can't really see you, so I'm sorry for not looking at you. But
I've covered it up anyway, so you probably can't see the rash.
Okay, so whoever you are, wherever you are. Oh, there you are. Hi. So
I only eat pretty much a few green vegetables.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which, here in the United States, we have a saying, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
Have you heard that? So where there's smoke, there's fire. So you have smoke.
Yeah.
Lupus is smoke. You can't say, well, I have a fire alarm. I have an extinguisher. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You have a fire. Whether you have an extinguisher, whether you have an alarm, if you have smoke, there's a fire. The fire has to be the digestive system. And I can see by looking at you even through the television, you're reacting to something.
Yeah.
So you reacted to something today. That's from the last day or two. So what you should be doing is a food diary.
Yeah.
You don't get a notebook, write down everything you eat. And the good news for you is the signs of your reaction are obvious.
Yeah.
So that's good news for you.
My husband's isn't.
What?
My husband has no.
No, it's a little harder. It's a little harder. That's right. But he can still feel it. He'll still feel pain. He'll feel joint pain. He'll be clogged up. He'll have constipation. He'll have some symptoms. So it's a little harder when it's inside your body. But look for symptoms and become your own doctor. Listen to your body. And so for the skin, you'll notice your skin flares up when you eat certain foods and you're still eating them. So I'm not saying that to be mean or to pick on you, but that's good news because that means that you have control over this whole thing. And it's not just cosmetic. It's horrible what awaits you. You look like a young woman. So you have plenty of good years left if you could figure this thing out. On the other hand, if you don't, it's not going to be good. What happens?
I'm not that young. I'm 53 and I have osteoporosis.
I'm 58. Appreciate it.
Inside. Yeah.
You're young. Appreciate it. You have 50 years left if you do this right.
Oh, yes.
Okay. No, if you do it right, you have 50 good years. All right. I got to motivate you guys. Thank you. What's your name, ma'am? What's your name?
Sharon.
Sharon? Sharon. Good to talk to you. And
Thank
you
you.
can email me if you like, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
Okay. God bless you all. Thank you, everybody.